Sedivore, Dawn of Rin. Chapter 1. The thunderous boom of the storm startled Rindolph from his slumber, shattering his dream. "Praise Estoadon," he said, instinctively invoking the name of the Storm Father. His heart was racing, and he lay still a moment longer, regaining his ability to think straight. The abrupt awakening purged almost all memories of his dream, yet a vague sense of loss and regret filled his mind. Shaking the feeling as best he could, he rolled out from beneath his old tattered blanket, stretched his limbs, and smiled. It had been over a month since this part of Caldria had seen rain, and he took the cloudburst as a good sign. "Today will be a good day," he whispered, rummaging through a pile of clothes in his small, dusty room. He found his gray shirt and dark brown pants. On multiple occasions, his mom told him that the gray shirt brought out his deep hazel eyes, and the brown pants matched perfectly.
"Rin, it's time to get up!"
His mother yelled to him.
"The storm will be passing soon, and I need you to run to market for the weekly supplies."
"Yes, ma'am," he replied as he laced his belt strap. Shuffling out of his room, he stopped to carefully pick up the pot of wash water from the stove, wrapping a rag around the handle to protect his hands. He stepped into the small washroom and filled the ceramic basin. The apartment was so small that he could place the pot back on the stove while still standing in the washroom. No sooner had he dunked his head into the basin, he reared back with a screech. The water was still cold. He took his mom's bonework comb and brushed the tangles from his shaggy black hair. Grabbing the leather satchel that his father gave him a few years back, he headed to the kitchen for breakfast. He sat on an old, wobbly wooden stool and picked absently at the splintered wood of the counter. "May I have a few extra tin bits?" he asked quietly, looking at his mother while she prepared the shopping list. She tilted her head, raising an eyebrow as she brushed her long, curly black hair away from her pale blue eyes.
"What for?"
"I want to pick up something for Elar's birthday. He'll be 13, and it's a big year for him."
"We'll see,"
she said wearily.
"I still need to finish a list of the essentials, and our rent is due this week."
Rin nodded and grabbed a palm-sized moonfruit from the small wooden bowl in the center of the counter. He took a few bites and noticed that it had already begun to spoil. Frowning, he reluctantly finished his breakfast. "Can we add moonfruits to the list?"
"Already taken care of. By the way, before you head off, I need you to fill the water jugs and store them in the cupboard."
"Already taken care of," he said, slightly more mockingly than he meant to. The sour taste of the moonfruit twisted his vocal cords as he talked. He quickly glanced at his mom, smiling, just in case she noticed the mocking tone. But she appeared not to notice, frowning at the shopping list as if it made her head hurt. At last, she put down the stylus and sat back with a slight cough, flexing her sore shoulders.
"I can only spare 15 copper, but if there is any left over after buying supplies, you can spend it on Elar if you wish."
"Thanks, Mom. I'm sure it'll be enough. Maven Whiteley gave me a voucher for a free handcart rental since I helped gather the carts last week."
"You are a very good boy, Rin."
His mother placed the thick sheet of parchment on the counter.
"Your father would have been very proud of you,"
she added. Rin smiled wistfully as he looked at his mother. "I hope so, but sometimes I feel—"
"I'm proud of you,"
she interrupted.
"So I know he would be."
Still smiling, he stood abruptly, hiding a sudden swell of emotion. He rolled the shopping list tight and slid it into his satchel, then slung the satchel over his right shoulder, letting it settle into its accustomed place by his left hip. As his mother handed him the coins, he placed a kiss on her forehead. She felt warm, too warm for this early in the day. But ever since her long illness a few years before, she still had some bad days. She patted his cheek.
"Better get going. Be safe and come home soon."
Putting the coins in his cloth coin purse, he headed out the door just as the storm clouds parted overhead. He tied the purse tightly to his belt and tucked it behind the buckle. One could never be too careful with loose coins. Although nowhere near as bad as the Baron's, The residents of the commons still had sticky fingers. The crowded streets would make it easy for any cut purse if Rin wasn't mindful. It would take him a few hours to walk down the smoothly paved streets of the city-state of Caldria, but he enjoyed the walk. Even if he had the extra coin to take a cab or a coach to market, he would refuse to do so unless it was an emergency. As the dark clouds slowly separated, Rin looked to the sky and could see the bright, multicolored band of glowing lights known as the Ring. This time of the year, the ring had a brilliant red aura surrounding it. It was still in the process of rising to the center of the sky, a journey it would complete by the end of this month. It was the first day of the month of harvest-tide, and new customers and merchants would soon flood the market, looking for and selling new wares. He made his way to the end of his street, hoping Elar wasn't waiting for him at the corner. They usually went to the market together, but Rin wanted to go alone this time. If he could buy a gift, he didn't want to spoil any surprises. There was the possibility of picking up a few hours of work for the merchants or other vendors for a bit of extra coin, or even a discount. That might help him get a better gift. Cautiously, he watched the door to Elar's house, crouching next to the short stone wall which ran alongside the property. He didn't want to risk being spotted by Elar. After a brief moment, he ran across the street, just as a coach pulled by two pale gray city-clads passed by. The draft beasts skidded to a halt, splashing their hooves through a muddy puddle. Rin smiled, reaching his hand out to stroke one of the beasts on its blunt, stubby horn just above its right eye. The driver quickly snapped his whip, startling Rin's hand back.
"Watch where I'm going, waif. I could have ran you down."
The driver of the cab yelled out. "Sorry, sir," replied Rin.
"Who cares?"
The driver made an obscene gesture and cracked his whip once more. The coach jolted as the beasts hurried off. Rin could hear cries from the passengers in the back as the coach took off down the road. "Arrogant guildies," Rin said, mumbling under his breath as he continued. He was used to the harassment that many guild members showed towards the common folk. There were a few that weren't rude, but not a lot. He dreamed of entering a guild, much like his father did. But that would be a few years from now. Even if he earned a sponsor, most guilds rarely offered admittance to anyone less than 16 years of age. Cutting through a few alleys and climbing over the short walls to save time, Rin finally reached the market. The area was even more congested than the streets, and Rin could barely see the large southern gates of the city-state through the high tents and caravan carts that blocked almost all but the guild traffic. The Guild of Trade and Treasury, commonly referred to as the Merchants' Guild, controlled all financial exchange. Members of this guild earned the title of merchant, and they would walk from tent to tent, checking licenses and verifying that the merchandise was of legitimate quality. Rin threaded his way carefully past several teams of brutes and stouts, pulling overloaded carts along the narrow lanes between the tents. Since both phenotypes were stronger and sturdier than the average human, merchants paid them well to haul goods and merchandise. Amused, Rin stopped to watch as a plodding pair of brutes encountered a team of stouts headed the other way. Growling, one of the hot-headed stouts puffed out his large chest and opened his mouth to argue, but his partner silenced him with an elbow. After all, the brutes towered over them by a span, and their gruff silence spoke volumes. Huffing in annoyance, the two stouts backed down the lane until they could turn aside and let the brutes pass. Rin smirked, wondering how a nimble would have dealt with that situation, but then he thought better of the notion. A nimble wouldn't get into that sort of situation in the first place. Rin quickly noticed a new stall set up near the front row. He was always curious about new things, so he made his way to the new stall to investigate the wares. "You're new here, right?" Rin grinned, leaning on the table. "What do you have to sell?" The merchant looked at Rin, forcing a smile.
"Ah, yes, indeed. I'm just traveling in from out west near Sedivore. I trade in all manner of trinkets collected by adventuring and scouting parties to offer to the general public. They are mostly collector pieces. I'll only be in the city-state for 3 days, so if you see something you like, best buy it quick.
Rin stood to the side as another customer approached and bought some fancy plates. He continued to look over all the jewelry and metallic eating utensils. "Is this real metal, or is it plated bone?" he asked, pointing to a set of knives, forks, and spoons. They were a dull golden brown and appeared to be ancient.
To the best of my knowledge, those are indeed real metal, though I haven't melted them down to test which metal it is.
The merchant said jokingly.
They feel like solid metal, and each of them has a bit of weight to it. The warrior who sold it to the guild said he looted them from a Tyranor-infested Juriel.
Rin's eyes widened. Images began flooding his mind as he remembered sitting on his father's knee as he told him stories of Juriel, ancient tombs and forgotten ruins that once littered the entire country of Caldria, which the capital city-state was named after. The mental image of the monstrous bug-like Tyranor slashing and clawing their way through the dusty passages of the dark ruins was enough to jar him back to reality. This is exactly what Elar would want. He rubbed his hands together, then placed one hand on his coin purse. This is genuine guild loot from an actual Juriel? The man nodded.
Yes, it is. It all comes with papers, which are signed by the warrior himself. The papers state exactly what the item is and where it was looted. Though, I'm not sure you could afford these. The warrior who commissioned this sale says I can only sell them as a set.
Rin didn't like the sound of that, but he hoped he could use his charm to make a bargain. Dramatically, he clutched his chest and staggered, groaning. "Oh, he shows me such lovely treasures, and then he snatches them away." The merchant grinned, so Rin kept going. "Have mercy, and tell me your lowest price." The merchant stroked his beard and tapped his guild ring on the table, as if contemplating his options.
My guildmaster would have my head if I asked for anything less than 8 iron stars.
Rin's high spirits thudded to the earth. "I have nowhere near that amount. Could I work to pay it off?"
No, that wouldn't work in this case. I'm sorry.
"I may be young and a commoner, but I'll help with whatever you need." Rin gestured widely, pointing to various merchants in the market. "Ask any merchant here. I am good for labor."
I don't doubt your abilities.
The merchant shook his head kindly.
But this is a commissioned sale. These are not mine to trade. I must ask for 8 iron stars, not a tin bit less, or I'd lose my guild badge.
Seeing Rin's despair, he smiled and shrugged helplessly.
I'm sorry, young man. My family needs to eat.
Rin returned the gesture, but didn't feel like smiling. "Unfortunately, so does mine. Thanks anyway." Rin walked over to the cart vendor and handed her the voucher for a free hand-cart rental. He then continued shopping for the items on his mother's list, loading the cart with blushberries, moonfruits, bread, dried meat, rice, and beans. He also bought a few clay jugs full of milk and another filled with gibberberry juice. As Rin was rearranging the groceries in the wicker cart, a soft voice called out to him.
"Ah, the Littell boy. Rindolph, wasn't it?"
A merchant woman stood by several racks of coats and long shirts. She continued,
"I'm sorry to hear about your father, Dane. How's Cassie doing?"
Rin smiled and walked over to the rack of coats. "I go by Rin, and thanks for asking. Mom's been doing okay. I'll let her know you were asking about her. What's your name?" he asked, extending his hand.
"I'm Nata.
She clasped his hand warmly for a moment.
I doubt she'll remember me. Your father escorted a few of my caravans. I only met your mother once, but she's a sweet Ardana. Glad to hear she's doing better."
Rin felt a strange lump in his throat at the mention of that word, Ardana. He had grown up with the knowledge of the social hierarchy and the titles that accompanied it. However, he wondered to himself if his mother was still considered an Ardana after his father's passing. Despite the troubling thought, Rin decided to accept Nata's honorable compliment and simply replied, "Thank you, Nata. I appreciate your kind words." While Rin perused some of the heavy coats, he noticed one in particular. It was thick, well padded, and nicely priced at only 9 tin bits. He was thinking about buying one for his mother when he heard a familiar voice yelling through the crowd.
Rin, where are you? You still here?
Rin looked up. The tall blond boy with sharp brown eyes was walking in his direction, but did not seem to notice him yet. Hurriedly, he handed the coat back to the merchant. "Thank you. I may be back for this later, if I can." "Elar, here! Over here!" Rin waved his arms in the air, stepping away from the stall so he could be seen.
Ah, there you are.
Elar smiled and rushed over to greet his friend.
Your mom told me you left for market. Why didn't you wait for me?
"I was planning on getting you a gift and didn't want to spoil it." Elar grinned widely, but still said,
You don't have to get me anything.
Rin smiled, shoving Elar's shoulder. "Yes, I do. You'll be 13, he said.
I guess you're right. So what did you get me?
Elar began rummaging through the handcart. "I'm not telling." Rin slapped his hands away, grinning. "Besides, I'll have to wait to get it."
Very well. Anything else you need to get? My dad has his carriage today. We can load it up so we don't have to walk back home.
Elar looked about for his father. Even at almost 13, he could easily see over most of the citizens in the market. "Nothing left on Mom's list, but I still need to get you that gift. The one I wanted to get is far too expensive, so—" He paused and looked at the sky, considering how much daylight might be left. "I want to try the market in the Barrens. We should still have several hours before nightfall."
Okay!
Ealer enthused, excited at the prospect of an adventure.
I'll see if Dad will drop these supplies at your mom's, and then we can walk to the Barrens from here. I promise I won't peek at what you get me.
Rin smirked wryly. "Oh, I'm sure you'll keep your eyes to yourself." After another glance through the crowd, Elar spotted his father loading the carriage with a few groceries. The two boys made their way toward the carriage, trying to build up the courage to ask for permission to go to the Barrens. They didn't think it would be too much trouble, since they had plenty of time before nightfall. It was not the first time they had ever been to the Barrens, but as crowded as the streets were, Elar's father might be unwilling to take that risk.
Dad,
Elar said while placing the groceries in the carriage.
Rin and I want to walk to the Barrens and visit the market there. Is that okay?
His father frowned and looked into the sky as Rin had done, observing the sun's place and estimating the time.
Very well.
He sighed.
As long as you both promise to make sure you leave the Barrens before the sun sets behind the western wall.
The two boys nodded in excitement.
Here's 2 copper,
Elar's father said.
but only use it to catch a coach back home. Your mother will kill me, Rin, so don't be getting home late. 5 hours at the most, you hear? That goes for the both of you. 5 hours.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Rin and Elar said in unison as they took off running towards the Barrens. At the entrance to the Barrens, the smooth surface of the street turned to cobblestone. Rin and Elar could see the tattered tents of the Market of the Barrens from the Black Gate. This area was much less crowded than the Market of the Commons. Though the market wasn't officially sanctioned by the Guild of Trade and Treasury, these traders still acted under the loose supervision of a merchant. The items weren't registered or authenticated, and the operations often bordered on illegal. The merchants in charge would turn a blind eye to any shady dealings or illicit trades, if they were well compensated. "Pick out whatever you want," Rin said, pointing to the ragged tents. "If I have enough, then it's yours."
Thanks!
Elar took off running, gleefully looking around at all the merchandise. Rin walked by a few carts, eyeing the goods. He noticed the traders eyeing him as well, considering if he was a thief or perhaps an easy mark. Elar's voice rang excitedly from a few stalls away. "Rin, I found something!" With a protective hand on his coin purse, Rin hurried over to join his friend, who was standing before a carefully organized table of assorted trinkets. "What is it?" Elar pointed at an ancient-looking bone-glass dagger. Blue runes were etched into the blade, and the tip had a metallic finish. The dagger also came with a black leather sheath.
I want this dagger, Rin. The runes are of Estoadon. You know I really need that.
Elar said, a hint of begging in his voice. Elar had a personal ancestral connection to Estoadon, the governing deity over all forms of energy. He was the prime father of fire, storms, cold, and other energetic forces. Soon, Elar would go to the Arcane Academy and begin his training to become a priest, or even a mage. Rin was not a particular devotee of Estoadon, Tetutak, or Lorencor, but honored them together as the Trihead. Still, he learned all he could about Estoadon so he could better understand Elar's connection and the trials he would undertake at the academy. That dagger is a splendid choice. I can see why you like it. Rin smiled and patted his coin purse as he addressed the trader. How much for this dagger, sir? The trader looked up from a small, tattered book and surveyed the boys. Not impressed by what he saw, he glanced at the dagger, then shrugged before returning to his reading.
3 iron stars.
Rin's eyes widened and his shoulders drooped. Why so much? He looked regretfully at Elar and shook his head.
What is the story behind this dagger?
Elar asked the trader. Again, the trader looked up from his book, annoyed this time.
Look, Runt, I said 3 stars. Want me to make it 5? Now either pay me or leave.
Rin clenched his fists and glared at the trader, who leaned back in his seat, smirking. Elar grasped Rin's shoulder and slowly shook his head. Elar had been around him for many years, and he knew how quickly Rin could leap into an unnecessary rage.
Breathe.
Elar whispered.
Please.
There was a moment of tense silence before Rin reluctantly said through his teeth, Very well. I'm sorry I wasted your precious time. Rin turned and walked a few steps away, but hearing the trader's gloating chuckle stopped him in his tracks. He clenched his fists and tried to calm himself, but before he knew what was happening, he whirled back to the trader. You guildless lump of street batter! Elar pulled anxiously at Rin's shoulder. The trader stood up quickly, banging his knee painfully on the table and knocking his wares out of place, sending a few to the ground. Rin smiled, pleased with the outcome that the trader brought upon himself.
Come on, let's leave.
Elar urged, tugging at Rin's arm once more.
It's not that important.
But it is. This is the second gift that I'm not able to buy you. I won't get another chance. The trader growled menacingly as he limped around the table.
You pesky little droger scat. You'll pay for this.
He gestured sharply, pointing at his own sternum with a thick thumb.
I know people here. You are in my side of the city now.
Hold!
A deep voice exclaimed.
Why are you yelling at these boys? What is the problem?
A young man, tall, wearing a light green cloak and a brown vest with matching pants, pushed his way through the crowd of onlookers as he walked over to the tent. Scowling, the trader tried to dismiss the interruption.
The problem, sir, is none of your business. Now go elsewhere while I deal with these rodents.
The man spoke with confidence, and his voice carried authority. He pulled out his coin purse.
I have the coin to make anything in this market my business, especially for traders wishing to conduct said business.
Rin noticed the man's guild ring and the sigil on the coin purse. The man was from the Guild of Travel and Transportation, commonly referred to as the Wayfarers Guild. These wayfarers dealt mostly with map-making, took care of pack and travel animals, maintained the upkeep of streets, and delivered mail and other packages. Although this man had no real jurisdiction over the current situation, he was a guild member, and his noble status demanded respect. The trader's eyes widened as he too spotted the guild ring, and he quickly changed his tone.
These 2 youngsters do not have the coin for the item they wanted, and they were taking it out on me and my merchandise.
He added with a crooked smile, gesturing to the mess of items. The man looked over at Rin and Elar, raising an inquisitive eyebrow. Rin looked at the wayfarer. I only want to know why that dagger is so expensive. This is the Baron's, not a guild-sanctioned market. The trader sighed and began to protest, but the tall cloaked man held his index and middle finger up, palm facing the trader, a gesture that demanded silence. He slowly scanned the scattered merchandise.
Is this the dagger in question?
The wayfarer pointed as he lowered his two fingers. The trader nodded as he gathered and reorganized the rest of his goods.
Excellent.
He took the dagger from the sheath.
How much are you asking for it?
3 iron stars.
The trader quickly replied, as he wiped his nose on his sleeve. This time, the wayfarer raised both of his eyebrows.
I can see now why these boys got upset.
He looked over the dagger a bit more, then continued,
Though I don't doubt that this blade could be worth that price, if you had any form of paperwork proving the item's authenticity.
Rin tried not to smile as he noticed the trader's lip quivering, holding back a snarl. The trader breathed out heavily through his nose. Then he forced a smile and shook his head.
I thought so. If you had that paperwork, then you would have sold it to the Merchants Guild by now. I'll offer you a single iron star for it.
The man reached into his coin purse and flipped an iron coin onto the trader's table.
Fine,
The trader snapped, grabbing up the coin.
but those boys have to leave my sight.
Satisfied, the wayfarer motioned to the boys.
Follow me if you want this dagger. I can give you some work to do.
Yes, sir. Rin grinned and nodded. Elar looked at the sky.
But we have to be out of the Barrens by sundown.
I don't think that'll be a problem. You still have a few hours.
The man glanced at a small bronze timepiece connected to a leather cord around his waist.
Maybe 2.5. You'll be fine if you go straight where I tell you to.
In that case, I guess it won't hurt.
Elar gave in and nodded to Rin.
I just need you to deliver a letter for me. I'll even give you the dagger in advance.
Great!
Elar reached for the dagger. Rin lightly knocked his hand back. That isn't yours. It's not quite your birthday yet. The man handed Rin the dagger and a small envelope sealed with green wax, then pointed to the north.
The house at the far end of Besno Street is where you need to go. It has 2 shrubs growing next to the red door. It'll be on your left. Ask for Adrian. If he pays you, take the coin as a tip for yourself.
Should we meet you back here when we are done? Rin asked.
No, I doubt you will have time to find me before it gets too late.
Who shall we say sent the letter?
Elar added.
He'll figure it out when he reads it.
The wayfarer turned and walked towards the gate, leaving the Barrens. Rin stood there, holding the sealed letter in his hands, feeling its weight. This was different from the typical physical weight of just any correspondence. No, Rin believed this letter held the weight of his entire future. Though the task assigned to him was not an official guild task, he saw it as one.
You best get out of here.
The trader snapped as he gathered his wares into the chest behind him.
Your protection has walked off, and I'm not going to forget about the 2 stars you owe me.
Eolar's throat clenched up momentarily before he swallowed.
Yes. Yes, sir.
He stuttered, looking at the man before tugging on Rin's shirt to snap him out of his daydream.
Come on, Rin. We need to go.
Rin nodded as he slid the envelope into his satchel. Glaring one last time at the trader, he snapped a soldier's salute, tucking his thumb in his fist and touching his knuckles to his right eyebrow. Thank you for the dagger, sir. It was a great honor serving you. Appalled, Elar finally succeeded in tugging his friend away. The 2 boys quickly ran northward along Great Street, which followed the wall separating the Barrens from the Commons.